My best regards and respects to all our revered modern teachers. The second address is on value education or life building, character building, and man making education. It's a burning necessity in the life of modern students. Meaning, what is value education? Value education consists of two words, that is value and education. Education, as we generally understand, means imparting of teachings by teachers on various subjects of study and learning of the same by students in the center of learning. Value generally means worth of a thing. Value in human life means some principle, quality or virtue which a human being believes and for which he has firm conviction to be worthy of possession and good for application, and which he expresses in the day-to-day conduct in life in all circumstances. Values such as truth, non-violence, self-control, purity, love, compassion, nobility, benevolence, tolerance, generosity, forgiveness, selflessness, friendliness, fellowship, brotherhood, doing good to others or paropakara, etc. are basic human values, universal in nature and common for all human beings of the world, irrespective of their caste, creed, cult, sect, color, gender, faith, belief, religion and nationality, etc. These values are worthy of possession, good for application, and ideal for expression in the day-to-day conduct by all human beings upon this earth plane. Thus, value education means imparting of teachings to students on various kinds of values, including moral value, ethical value, religious value, and spiritual value in different spheres of activities in human life with a view to enabling them to learn, understand, appreciate, believe, accept and apply those values in the day-to-day conduct in their lives for their good. The major sources of the above values are moral science, ethics, religion and spiritual science. Hence, moral education, ethical education, religious education and spiritual education are called value education. Now let us discuss the simple meaning of moral education, ethical education, religious education and spiritual education. Moral and ethical education relates to imparting of teachings to students on moral and ethical qualities or values in life such as truth, non-violence, self-control, celibacy, internal and external purity, honesty, austerity, non-stealing, non-covetousness and other prescribed code of conduct or righteousness actions or virtuous actions or moral and ethical actions. Religious education in this context means imparting of academic or intellectual or theoretical knowledge or teachings to the students on different religions of the world, covering inter alia the correct meaning of religion, second the necessary importance and benefits of the religion in human life, third the brief outline of various religions, the philosophies and teachings of various religions in brief, fourth the fundamental principles or tenets of various religions, fifth the true concept of religion, sixth the essential or the internal aspects of all religions which include moral and ethical qualities or values such as truth, non-violence, purity, love, compassion, nobility, benevolence, generosity, forgiveness, selflessness, friendliness, fellowship, brotherhood, doing good to others or paropakara, etc., which are universal human qualities and are common to all human beings and all religions of the world at all periods of time and unity of religions. However, religious education for the present should not include religious instructions, that is, teachings on the non essentials or the external aspects of different religions, such as the method of worship of God, rites, rituals, sacrifices, observances, ceremonies, festivals, customs, traditions, etc., which are different in different religions and which have been prescribed with a view to suit to different sections of people of the world having different tastes, temperaments, and needs in different geographical locations, historical times, etc. Because imparting of teachings on such religious instructions or the non essential or the external aspect of different religions may lead to misunderstanding, discord, disharmony, quarrels, restlessness, etc. amongst the followers of different religions in the society, nation, and world due to lack of correct interpretation, right understanding, unanimous views, conclusion, and acceptance of the same at the present time. Further, religious education should be non-sectarian in view of prevalence of multiple religions and multiple religious sects or subgroups in our country. Religious education should also be non-dogmatic and non-bigotry. Spiritual education relates to the science of the self or soul or Atman. It is also called Atma Jnana. It also relates to Brahman, the Paramatman, or the Supreme Soul, or the God. Therefore, it is also called Brahma Jnana. It imparts teaching or knowledge to students on various paths for achievement of the higher purpose of human life upon the earth plane, that is, attainment of liberation of the individual soul or Atman from the cycle of births and deaths, or union of the individual soul or Atman with the Supreme Soul or God or Paramatman or Brahman, which is known as self-realization or God realization or moksha, that is the attainment of the state of perfection, the state of divinity. Such paths include different kinds of yoga such as karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, Vedanta, meditation, prayer, etc. Value education is the real education. Value builds the character and the life of human beings and also make them true human beings. Therefore, value education is life building, character building, and man making education. Value education is called life building, character building, and man making education. It is so called because it imparts teaching to students on first how to build their rare and precious human lives rightly during their golden student life and youth period, the right period in their lives, by laying life's foundation properly and strongly with good physical health, powerful mind, noble character, and ethical conduct with strict observance of complete celibacy, and constructing life's superstructure completely, properly, strongly, and nicely by achieving 4 great goals of ideal human life according to our great and glorious Indian culture or Bharatiya Sanskriti, that is, achievement of economic prosperity, fulfillment of vital worldly desires, adherence to righteousness in life's daily activities, and attainment of spiritual illumination for liberation of the individual souls from the cycle of births and deaths called self-realization or God realization. Next is how to build their character by cultivation of student-like good qualities such as obedience, humility, respectfulness, love or shraddha, devotion or bhakti, faith or vishwas, friendliness, self-control or sanyama, discipline, faith in oneself, self-confidence, courage, patience, fortitude, optimism, encouragement, hard working, etc. And human like good qualities such as truth, non-violence, purity, self-control, honesty, selflessness, friendliness, love, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, optimism, etc. And by eradication of bad qualities like lust, anger, greed, selfishness, hatred, jealousy, arrogance, fear, timidity, pessimism, etc. And how to make them as a man, that is real human beings, by eradication of their animal instincts, that is lust, anger, greed, infatuation, pride, jealousy, selfishness, etc. By development of noble and human qualities such as non-violence, selflessness, tolerance, courage, goodwill, friendship, brotherhood, doing good to others or paropakara, etc. And unfoldment of their dormant divine qualities such as truthfulness, love, purity, compassion, forgiveness, etc. Saying in our ancient spiritual scriptures and views of our saints and sages. In this context, it is most worthwhile to note some sayings in our ancient spiritual scriptures and some views of our saints and sages in some aspects of education system of our society. Saying in our ancient spiritual scriptures, Mundaka Upanishad divides Vidya or knowledge into two types. They are Para Vidya and Apara Vidya. Dve Vidyai Veditabhya Para Chaiva Paracha. Para Vidya means knowledge of the self or Atma Vidya. It is science of the self or Atma. It imparts knowledge regarding liberation of the individual soul or Atman from the cycle of births and deaths and its union or merger with the soul or the Paramatma or the Brahman. This Vidya or knowledge is also called Brahma Vidya as it relates to attainment of the Brahman, the supreme soul, by the individual soul. Paravidya gives spiritual freedom. It results in happy and peaceful living. Paravidya relates to the spiritual aspect of human life and is called spiritual education or Adhyatma Vidya. Paravidya is also called the higher Vidya. It is the supreme knowledge. Aparavidya imparts knowledge regarding earning of money and achievement of material prosperity and fulfillment of vital worldly desires. It gives economic freedom. It leads to material prosperity and results in comfortable worldly living. It relates to the secular aspect of human life and is called secular education. Aparavidya is called the lesser Vidya. It is the ordinary knowledge. Paravidya or spiritual education and Aparavidya or the secular education are complementary as both are necessary for living a complete, prosperous, purposeful, successful and ideal human life. And both spiritual education and secular education combined together constitute the right education. Vishnu Purana says, Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktaye. Knowledge is that which liberates. It means that Vidya or knowledge which liberates the learner is true Vidya or true knowledge. This true Vidya or true knowledge means Adhyatma Vidya or spiritual knowledge, and it teaches the learner how to get liberation of the soul from the cycle of births and deaths. It relates to the spiritual aspect of human life and is called spiritual education. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse number 32, Lord Krishna says, among the signs, I am the science of the self. Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. It means that Adhyatma Vidya or the science of the self is supreme amongst all types of sciences. It relates to the spiritual aspect of human life and is called spiritual science or spiritual education. Views of the world famous Saint Swami Vivekananda, the world famous politician and statesman as well as a Mahatma, the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and other world famous Saint Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj, their views on education. About education, Swami Vivekananda says that education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. Education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain and runs right there, undigested in your life. We must have life building, man making, character building, assimilation of ideas. If you have assimilated 5 ideas and made them your life and character, you have more education than any man who has got by heart a whole library. If education is identical with information, the libraries are the greatest sages in the world and encyclopedias are the rishis. About education, Mahatma Gandhi says that by education I mean an all-round drawing out of the best in child and man, body, mind and spirit. Man is neither mere intellect nor the gross animal body, nor the heart or soul alone. A proper and harmonious combination of all the 3 is required for the making of the whole man and constitute the true economics of education. About education, Swami Shivananda says that education is the manifestation of the divinity in man. Education is the training in the art of living. That education which makes you tread the path of truth and righteousness, which molds your character, which helps you to attain freedom, perfection and knowledge of the self, and at the same time enables you to eke out an honest living, can be called true education. Views on spiritual education. About spiritual education, Swami Vivekananda says that religion is the manifestation of the divinity already in man. Every improvement in India requires first of all an upheaval in religion. Before flooding the land with socialistic or political ideas, first deluge the land with spiritual ideas. If you attempt to get secular knowledge without religion, I tell you plainly, vain is your attempt in India. It will never have a hold on the people. We must have a hold on the spiritual and secular education of the nation. You must dream it, you must talk it, you must think it, and you must work it out. Till then, there is no salvation of the race. About spiritual education, Mahatma Gandhi says that if India is not to declare spiritual bankruptcy, religious instructions of its youth must be held to be at least as necessary as secular instruction. Without a national system of education, all our efforts must prove futile. Whenever we get Swaraj, today or after some time, it has to be remembered that it will not last long without national education. About spiritual education, Swami Shivananda says that true education must teach not merely some means of earning livelihoods, tenets of citizenship, etc., but it must develop moral and spiritual qualities of the student. Education must aim at forming a spiritual attitude towards life. Spirituality does not hinder material progress. It buttresses, in fact, material interests. The real advancement and well-being of every society and nation depend upon the right kind of educational basis. If an educational system is to be more effective, it must rest on a spiritual foundation. If this is assured, then science and technology will best serve the interest of mankind. Lopsided emphasis either on humanities or science alone will not serve the interest of the country. Science is not godless. Science alone cannot ensure peace and harmony. Humanities alone cannot cure the ills of poverty or safeguard the freedom of the country. There should be a synthetic development of the both. Necessity of education. In this universe, everything is changing and going through a process of evolution. The lowest of the creation, that is, the inanimate stones and mountains, evolve into fertile soil. Fertile soil sustain and evolve into live living plants and trees. Plants and trees evolve into insects and animals. Insects and animals evolve into human beings, the crown of the creation. Then the turn comes for human beings to evolve and transform themselves into divinity, which is the state of their Creator Himself, and thereby to merge themselves with the Creator or God. With this, the process of evolution gets completed. Attainment of the state of divinity, which is also known as union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, or liberation of the soul from the cycle of births and deaths, or self-realization or God realization or moksha, is the supreme grand goal of aspiration of ideal human life, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures and as said by our rishis, munis, saints, sages, and according to our great, glorious, lofty, unique, and ideal ancient Indian culture or Bharatiya Sanskriti. Attainment of such state is possible only in human life amongst all kind of living beings upon this earth plane, but in no other species of life. Therefore, our ancient spiritual scriptures and our rishis, munis, saints, sages, and the great ones say that human life upon the earth plane is a rare and precious gift of God, created with the higher purpose of enabling the human beings to attain the state of divinity. They further say that attainment of such state only bestows permanent happiness, eternal peace, and spiritual bliss in human life, and attainment of such state alone results in permanent cessation of worldly sorrows, sufferings, pains, and miseries in human life. Therefore, they say that human life ought to be utilized most gainfully for the purpose of attainment of the state of divinity. When the state of divinity is attained and permanent happiness and eternal peace are derived, life is said to be lived successfully, lived purposefully, truly, worthily, happily, and peacefully. Then only human life is said to be ideally lived. Thus only this rare and precious gift of human birth given to us by God is wisely and gainfully utilized. Further, human beings have a mixture of animal instincts, human qualities, and divine faculties. In the process of their evolution, they need to transform themselves into divinity, into perfection, by shedding their animal instincts like lust, anger, greed, fear, hatred, pride, jealousy, selfishness, developing moral and ethical values, and human qualities like non-violence, selflessness, tolerance, courage, goodwill, friendliness, fellowship, brotherhood, doing good to others or paropakara, etc., and unfolding their latent divine faculties like truthfulness, love, purity, compassion, forgiveness, etc. Thereby, they can make endeavors to attain self-realization or God realization, that is the state of divinity, that is the state of perfection. Learning of the knowledge about the method of attainment of the state of divinity, known as union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, or liberation of the individual soul from the cycle of births and deaths, or self-realization, or God realization, or moksha, which is the supreme grand goal of aspiration of human life, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures and according to our great, glorious, lofty, unique, and ideal ancient Indian culture or Bharatiya Sanskriti, and the method of transformation of human beings into the state of divinity, as stated in the above two paragraphs, require knowledge to be derived through education. This is the necessity of education for human beings. Further, God has endowed human beings the crown of his creation with a special faculty, that is the power of intellect. The power of intellect enables the human beings to think and discriminate between right and wrong. God has also granted complete independence to human beings in the spheres of their thinking and actions. With such independence, human beings can choose between right and wrong and then think, decide and act accordingly. Right actions yield good results, leading to happiness and peace in their lives, and wrong actions brings in bad consequences, resulting in pains, miseries, sorrows and unrest in their lives. This happens according to the inexorable law of action or karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. Therefore, it is necessary for human beings to use the power of intellect, the power of discrimination, and to know what is right and what is wrong for their good. Learning of the knowledge about the science of actions and the knowledge about discriminating between what is right and what is wrong, and then to choose to take right action as stated, also requires education for human beings. Thus is also the necessity of education for human beings. Acquiring knowledge for the above two purposes constitutes the primary necessity of education for human beings. Education for these two purposes is the true education or the real education. Such education can be acquired in the form of life building, character building and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education. Moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education is called value education in the modern time, as discussed now. Such education, which was imparted in Gurukulas and Rishikulas in ancient time, is presently not being imparted in modern schools, colleges and universities of our country. Simultaneous with the process of their transformation, human beings have to live in this earth plane for some period. During their lifespan upon this earth plane, they need to survive by maintaining their physical body. For survival of their physical body as well as to meet their individual, family and social needs of secular nature, they need to earn money by taking to some income generating activities. Learning of how to earn money through such activities also require knowledge. For acquiring such knowledge also, human beings need education. Acquiring knowledge for this purpose constitutes the secondary necessity of education for human beings. Education for this purpose is called the secular education. Such education only is being imparted in modern schools, colleges and universities of our country. This, in short, is the necessity of education for human beings. Without education, human beings, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures and as said by our rishis, munis, saints and sages, live a life similar to that of the animal, that is taking birth, searching for food, eating, sleeping, procreating, enjoying, fearing, suffering and one day meeting with the death. By living such an animal life, human birth, the rare and precious gift of God, is wasted and the higher purpose of human life is not achieved. Therefore, education is a basic necessity of human beings like food, clothing, house, medicine, etc., and is most vital in human life. Importance of education. Importance from individual point of view. Value education or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education, or life building, character building and man making education of human beings is the foundation upon which the superstructure of their successful life is built and upon which it rests. If the foundation is weak or deficient, the whole superstructure, howsoever strongly and nicely built, is bound to fall down or collapse, leading to destruction and loss. If the foundation is strong and is laid properly, the superstructure built upon it will stand long and last long. In the same way, deficient education, that is secular education only without value education, will mar the life of human beings. And right education, that is both secular education and value education, will make their life. Deficient education may lead to temporary material prosperity and worldly pleasures, but cannot bring in permanent happiness, eternal peace, and spiritual bliss in the personal life of human beings. Instead, it will lead to a life of miseries, diseases, sorrows, sufferings, negativity, skepticism, insecurity, fear, cares, anxieties, depression, unrest, etc. As a result, the rare and precious human life upon the earth plane will be lived in vain. That is the higher purpose of human life, that is, union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, or liberation of the individual soul from the cycle of births and deaths, or self-realization, or God realization, or moksha, which is the supreme grand object of aspiration, or grand goal of ideal human life, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures, and as said by our rishis, munis, saints, and sages, and according to our great, glorious, lofty, unique, and ideal ancient culture or Bharatiya Sanskriti, cannot be achieved. Consequently, lasting happiness and eternal peace cannot be derived, and there will not be permanent cessation of worldly sorrows, sufferings, pains, and miseries in human life. On the other hand, value education or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education or life building, character building, and man making education will not only guide human beings regarding acquiring of true material prosperity in the rightful manner and fulfillment of legitimate vital worldly desires, but also enlighten them on the path of religion and spirituality for achievement of the said higher purpose of human life. On achievement of the said higher purpose of human life, there will be lasting happiness and eternal peace, and permanent cessation of worldly sorrows, sufferings, and pains, miseries in their personal life. In addition to this, it will also lead to true prosperity as well as real happiness and eternal peace in their domestic life, social life, and national life. Therefore, value education is more important for human beings. Further, value education or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education or life building, character building, man making education is more important than even the other basic necessities of human life, such as food, clothing, house, medicine, etc. Because if the latter is not available to a human being, his physical health will only suffer, or in the worst case he may die. But if the value education or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education or life building, character building, and man making education is not made available, he may remain physically alive and well, but morally, ethics, character, humanity, nobility, religion, and spirituality in him will die. He will live an animal-like life full of sorrows, sufferings, pains, and miseries only. He will invite degeneration, downfall, destruction, and loss in his personal life, and thus his precious human life will be lived in vain. Therefore, value education is more important, rather most important and most vital for human beings. Importance from national point of view. Value education or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education or life building, character building, and man making education is more important than the other basic necessities of life like food, clothing, house, medicine, etc. for a nation also. Because a nation is said to be built more with its people, its living beings, than with its inanimate vast geographical area. Enormous economic development, abundant material prosperity, vast scientific inventions, great technological advancement, huge military powers, etc. Because the people of a nation who have built their lives rightly and empowered themselves profoundly with good physical health, powerful mind, noble character, and ethical conduct during their student life and youth period only can contribute significantly and work constructively towards the development, progress, prosperity, peace, and welfare of a nation in all fields of activities. And the people of a nation or the citizens of a nation, more particularly the students, the future citizens of a nation who have been imparted right education, that is value education or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education or life building, character building and man making education during their student life and youth period in schools, colleges and universities only can build their lives rightly in the said manner, and such rightly educated people can only build a nation rightly and make the nation great. Therefore, it is said that student building leads to nation building, and nation building comes through student building, or nation building depends on student building. Further, if the basic necessities of life such as food, clothing, house, medicine, etc. are not made available to the people of a nation, the people of one generation only will suffer physically or even die. But if a nation cannot make value education or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education or life building, character building and man making education available to its people, the people may remain physically alive, achieve great economic development and abundant material prosperity, make vast scientific inventions and great technological advancement, and enjoy huge comforts and enormous luxuries. But morality and ethics, character and humility, religion and spirituality, patriotism and loyalty to the nation, in them will die. The people will get degenerate, there will be downfall, unrest, violence, destruction and loss in the life of the people and in the life of the nation. Thus, the nation will die, its culture will die. The degeneration will also have similar adverse effects on cumulative basis on the people of a nation, generation after generation, and thus the civilization of a nation will also die. In view of the above, value education or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education or life building, character building and man making education is more important, rather most important and most vital for a nation also. In ancient time, educational centers known as gurukulas, rishikulas were imparting to students life building, character building and man making education or moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education called value education in modern time, and also secular education such as languages, mathematics, economics, political science, social science, medical science, architecture, fine arts, sculpture, weaponry, etc. The purpose of such education was life building, character building, man making and self development. Consequently, the ancient students could know the right goals and the right path of their lives. They were proceeding in the path and were able to build their life rightly by laying a proper and strong foundation of life and by constructing thereupon a complete, proper, strong and nice superstructure of life. They are achieving all-round developments of their physical body, mind, intellect, heart and soul. Overall, they are living an ideal student life. Further, they are able to build themselves adequately to stand on their own legs and earn their livelihood independently. They were also able to face the challenges and difficulties of real workaday life and to keep on proceeding forward optimistically and patiently amidst unfavorable circumstances and adverse situations. They were also developing themselves as good human beings and were adhering to righteousness and practicing spirituality in their day-to-day life. They were living their precious life in accordance with our Indian culture, our Bharatiya Sanskriti, and endeavoring to achieve the higher purpose of precious human life, that is the liberation of the individual soul from the cycle of births and deaths, or union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, or self-realization, or God-realization, or moksha, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures. And thereby they are living their rare and precious life with lasting happiness and eternal peace, without worldly sorrows and sufferings. Thus, their future life was ideal, successful, complete, purposeful, prosperous, happy, and peaceful. Modern education. But in modern time, the ancient system of education was reportedly replaced by the Western system of education by the Britishers during their more than 200 years of rule over our country, with ulterior motive to break the very backbone of our nation, which is our spiritual and cultural heritage, and in order to keep our nation as a truly dominated one. Consequently, our schools, colleges, and universities teach our students only secular education, that too on Western pattern. There is no provision for imparting of life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education, or value education in modern time. Consequently, our modern students are deprived of the same. They are not imparted teachings on the right goals and right path of human life, and on the manner of building their life rightly and living the same successfully. They have become victims of such situations, and many of them proceed in the wrong path of life. Consequently, the foundation of their life becomes weak and poor. Physical health, weak mind, non-observance of celibacy, pitiful or not so noble character, and undesirable conduct. They are unable to achieve all-round development of their physical body, mind, intellect, heart, and soul. They are unable to bring out the best in them. Overall, they are not able to live an ideal student life like the ancient students of Gurukulas. Further, they are unable to build themselves adequately to stand on their own legs and earn their livelihood independently. They are also unable to face the challenges and difficulties of real workaday life and to proceed forward optimistically and patiently amidst unfavorable circumstances and adverse situations. They are also not able to develop themselves as good human beings when compared with the ancient students. Further, they are devoid of knowledge about our great ancient Indian culture, our Bharatiya Sanskriti, and about the Parama Lakshya, or the supreme goal of human life, dharma or religion, adhyatma or spirituality. Consequently, they don't adhere to the righteousness and moral and ethical values and don't practice spirituality in their lives. Instead, they live their future household life in a predominantly materialistic pattern with enormous worldly enjoyments and abundant sensual pleasures. Thereby, their future life is spent in sorrows, sufferings, miseries, and failures without achievement of the higher purpose of human life, that is, liberation of the individual soul from the cycle of births and deaths, or union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, or self-realization, or God-realization, or moksha. Achievement of this higher purpose of the supreme grand goal of ideal human life, as stated in our ancient spiritual scriptures, and as said by our rishis, munis, saints, and sages, and according to our great, glorious, lofty, unique, and ideal ancient Indian culture, our Bharatiya Sanskriti. Achievement of this grand goal alone bestows lasting happiness and eternal peace, and results in permanent cessation of worldly sorrows and sufferings in human life. Thus, our modern students are unable to live an ideal, successful, complete, purposeful, prosperous, happy, and peaceful human life. Consequently, they are undergoing catastrophic conditions and are suffering from irreparable damages and incurring permanent losses in their lives. The adverse effects of the faulty, deficient modern education system have also been befalling on our elderly persons, our teachers and professors, our family, our society, our culture, and our nation. Thus, necessity for restoration of life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education called value education in modern time in the schools, colleges, and universities of our country. In this context, it is most important to note here that students can learn how to build their character and how to perform ethical conduct by acquiring moral and ethical education. Also, they can learn how to live religious and spiritual life by acquiring knowledge about dharma or religion and adhyatma or spirituality through religious education and spiritual education. But imparting of moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education, which was there in educational centers known as Gurukulas, Rishikulas in our ancient time, has not yet been restored in modern schools, colleges, and universities of our country. The reason for the same could be that imparting of such type of education, more particularly religious education, is considered by many in modern time as anti-secular and also violative of the provisions of the Article 28 of the Constitution of India. In this connection, it is to be noted that all high-level commissions and committees constituted in our country since independence in 1947, such as the Radhakrishnan Committee in 1948-49, Kothari Commission in 1964-66, National Policy on Education in 1986, Ramamurthy Committee in 1990, Central Advisory Board of Education CASE Committee on Policy in 1992, Planning Commission Core Group on Value Oriented of Education in 1992, S.B. Chauhan Committee in 1996 and 1996 to 1999 have spoken about the necessity of and given their recommendation for restoration of moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education in all schools, colleges and universities of our country. Further, in Writ Petition C number 98 of 2002, in case of Ms. Aruna Rai and others versus Union of India and others, the Honorable Supreme Court of India have also observed that introduction of study of religions or religious education are distinguished from religious instructions in educational institutions of our country wholly maintained out of state funds is not anti-secular and also is not violative of the provisions of the Article number 28 of the Constitution of India, which prohibits imparting of religious instructions in any educational institution wholly maintained out of state funds. Rather, such education is necessary in the life of children to grow as good human beings and in the life of the people to control their wild animal instincts and achievement of spiritual growth and higher goal of human life. Therefore, imparting of moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education, more particularly religious education in modern schools, colleges, universities of our country is not anti-secular and is not violative of the provision of the Article 28 of the Constitution of India. Thus, there is no constitutional or legal obstruction for imparting of moral, ethical, religious and spiritual education, more particularly religious education to our students in modern schools, colleges and universities of our country, which are wholly maintained out of state funds, and there is no constitutional or legal obstruction for imparting of such education to our students in all other modern schools, colleges, universities of our country, including the private ones. In spite of the above, life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education called value education, in the modern time has not yet been restored in the modern schools, colleges, and universities of our country, and has not yet been included in the study of curriculum. In this connection, it is most worthwhile to note that life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education, is the soul of the ideal study curriculum, while secular education on various subjects of study is its body. Therefore, life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education called value education, in the modern time needs to be restored completely and permanently and included in the present study curriculum and imparted to the students in our modern schools, colleges, and universities most urgently and immediately without further loss of time, in the larger interests of our modern students as well as our elderly persons, our teachers and professors, our family, our society, our culture, and our nation. Necessity of study of spiritual literature. In this situation, until life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education called value education in the modern time is restored completely and permanently in our modern schools, colleges, and universities, our modern students need to study in their own interest spiritual literature, because the same is the source of moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education. By studying spiritual literature, they can learn life building, character building, and man making education, or moral, ethical, religious, and spiritual education, or value education, and get necessary guidance in the matter of deciding the right goals of precious human life, knowing the right path of precious human life, building their precious human life rightly by laying a proper and strong foundation, and by constructing thereupon a complete, proper, strong, and nice superstructure during their golden student life and youth period, and for living the same completely, purposefully, prosperously, happily, peacefully, successfully, and ideally. What is spiritual literature? We will discuss the same in the next address.